Well, thanks for coming on, Rod. Appreciate your time as always. But if you could you give us an intro of who you are, where you started, what you're doing now, all the good juicy stuff.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Ton. Let's have some fun today. Why don't I tell you a little bit about my story? Because it'll kind of lend some framework to some of the stuff I think we might enjoy talking about. So, I'm a Dutch immigrant, wooden shoes and windmills. I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vantja. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado. And we didn't have much. I can tell you, I remember eating expired food. We shopped at an expired food store, true story. They had them back then. And we drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning because it was cheaper than real milk. And trust me, it sounds better than it is. And I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school until I finally lied about my age when I was 14 and got a job at Burger King flipping burgers so I could buy my own freaking clothes. And I'm sure you've got listeners had it harder than I did, but luckily my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat, and I knew I wanted more. And she was an inspiration in that regard. And she actually, with her babysitting money, invested in the stock market successfully, but also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition was the house right across the street from us. She bought when I was about 14 for about 30 grand. And then when I was 17, she told me it had gone up 20,000 in her sleep. It was worth 50. And I'm like, what? You made 20 grand and you didn't do anything? And this was when 20 grand was a lot of money, okay? And I'm like, screw college, I'm getting into real estate. So I went and got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, which you could do back then with education. I could have my own office. Now they got smart, you need some experience before you can be a broker. And I was smart enough to go work for another broker. But in my first year in real estate, I made about 8 grand. My second year, maybe 10 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000. So what happened between year 2 and year 3 to cause me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I met a guy, he was actually the broker I was working for, that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology and how 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the real estate stuff we talk about on our podcasts. And fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term in 3 states. In 2000, and I own thousands of apartment units now. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so freaking big, I could barely fit it through the door. It's like over $8,000 an hour for the year. And of course, I did the math on that. And, when you get a big head, I thought I was a real estate god. When that happens, God or the universe will give you a nice little smackdown. Well, that was 2008 and 9. Yeah, I lost conservatively $50 million in 2008 and 9. And so, what I'm known for talking about on my podcast and with my students is, the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. And then definitely as important, maybe even more important, the mindset it took to recover from losing 50 million, which frankly is the same strategies that you would utilize to get started. So, Ton, if you'd like to drill down on some of that stuff a little bit, I think it might add value to your listeners if you'd like to go there.
Oh, Rod, 1,000%, brother. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So the first thing is you've got to know what it is you want, because you've got to create what Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich calls a burning desire, hunger. You got to want it because that's how you push through fear. That's how you push through limiting beliefs. And we'll talk about those things more in a minute. But so you've got to have your goals. And so if you come to one of my boot camps, for example, the first thing we do is goal setting on steroids. Because how the hell do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You got to know what it is you want with clarity, when you want it, and more importantly, why you want it. Okay, it's the why that'll drive you. So, and that way, when you've got, when you know what it is you want, and you've got your goals lined out, and you create that burning desire, when you get knocked down, you get back up. And I'm going to tell you, an average ability with burning desire always equals success. Okay. And so you got to find what you love. You've got to find your mission and purpose in life. And then when you want success as bad as you want to breathe, success is inevitable. And so I'll tell you how you can come to one of my boot camps. I do virtual boot camps, and I'll give your peeps a $47 ticket price for 2 days of training with nothing being sold. So if you want to do that, you can. But also, I do my goal setting workshop regularly, and it's in my link tree. So if you're not interested in multifamily, for example, that's what I teach at my boot camps. Go to rodslinks.com rodsplural.com. At the bottom is my goal setting workshop. There's a guide you can download. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. Here's the sad reality, Ton. People spend more time planning a freaking birthday party than they do designing their lives, okay? Doing your goals is designing your life. If you've got a child over 10 years old, have them do it. If you have a spouse, have them do it. Get aligned on the things that you want. It's very powerful. So again, go to the link tree, rodslinks.com, and do that. You'll be very, very glad you did. So it starts with goals. So again, when I lost everything in 2008 and 9, that was the first thing I did, was reassociate with my goals. But it's the same thing if you're, in a rat race job, or maybe you've got a great job, but you're still not where you want to be as far as freedom, time freedom, money freedom, then and you need to do something else, or in addition to what you're doing. It starts with the goals. Then you've got to make a decision, okay? And I don't mean dip your freaking toe in the water. I don't mean 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean it is done, okay? When you decide. And when you decide, you're committed. And if you're not committed, you're going to get knocked off track. If you're just interested, for example. But once you're committed, you're like a train on a track, okay? And then when you're committed, you take massive freaking action. And when you're committed, it's no longer a dream, it's an outcome, right? Now, motivation will get you started. But that decision and that commitment is what's going to bring you home. And I'm going to tell you, it's not a 99.9% thing, it's a 100% thing. You make that decision. The Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. So a great example of a decision would be if you're going to attack the island in battle, you burn your ships because you're taking their damn ships home. That's a decision, okay? Then it's freaking done, okay? So once you've made that decision, and that's what I did when I lost everything, okay, enough whining and feeling sorry for yourself. I mean, I thought I was set for life. I had 800 houses, I had multiple apartment complexes, and the whole thing just imploded. And we can drill down on that, why and how and all that later. But the point is, I was hiding under a rock with my eyeball poking out for a few months, just feeling sorry for myself. And then I'm like, all right, get up, you big puss, and go make shit happen again. And so that's what I did. Took that decision. Then you take that first step. That's the next piece, okay? And, like Dr. Martin Luther King says, you take that first step in faith, the next step will be revealed, and so on and so forth. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Lao Tzu, thousands of years ago, said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But sometimes that step could be the most important decision or the biggest step in your life, even that small step. And a lot of people get caught up in analysis paralysis, okay? Especially, introverted people. The thing I want to, and I will tell you, there's some of the most successful people in my coaching program and in my business is the ones that are introverted because they connect deeper and they analyze and so on and so forth. But the thing I want to tell you is if that's you, just recognize that you can drive you don't have to know every single piece of something before you get started, okay? You don't have to check off every single box. And you know who you are, and I love you, okay? But just remember, you can drive all the way across the United States at night with your headlights seeing 50 feet in front of you, and you'll make it. Other people have made it before you. You may have some obstacles, but it can be done. It's the same way with anything you move forward on, like the multifamily business, if that's what you're interested in. And I'll tell you, don't fear failure either. If you're fearing failure, fear freaking regret. Okay, we fail our way to success. I have built 29 businesses so far in my career. Actually, I think 30 now, 30. And several worth tens of millions of dollars. I got 2 right now that are. But most, by the way, when I call failures seminars, okay? When I lost 50 million, that was a seminar. It was a freaking expensive seminar, okay? But it was a seminar, okay? So I built 29 businesses, several worth tens of millions. Like I said, most were spectacular flaming seminars, okay? And, we fail our way to success. The key is not to have regret, okay? Tom, there was this nurse in Australia, hospice nurse, okay? So she took care of patients when they were about to die. Her name was Bronnie Ware. And she asked them a question. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it. It's a bestseller, something like The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? Not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that, okay? And so, fear that. Don't fear failure, okay? Failure is just a seminar. You get your butt back up and you go I lost 50 million. If you know somebody lost more than that, have them call me so I can feel better about it. But otherwise, no excuses, okay? Just get your ass back up and get going. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is fear and limiting beliefs. So when I immigrated, I got thrown into school, and I've got a prop back here I'm going to show you. Hang on one second. Okay. I got thrown into school. I didn't speak English. I found out what bullies were for the first time. And then my mom, proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in these wooden shoes and these leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest, okay? So these are the actual scene of the crime. We found these in the house when we put her in assisted living. So I got my ass kicked again, okay? And then, the bullies would chase me home from school, and she'd chase them off with a fly swatter, and next day, ass kicking. And I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough, and I had something happen on a playground, too. I'll share that with you. So I had this crush on this girl when I was 9 years old. Her name was Carolyn, just the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, curly hair, and I made the mistake of telling my friend Becky Grills that I had a crush on Carolyn. Well, she told her, and I'm out on the playground dancing around because I think I'm in love, and then I see Carolyn coming towards me with what felt like half the school. It's probably about 8 or 10 kids. She comes up to me, and that's the first time I'd actually even looked her in the face, okay? And she goes, "Do you like mustard?" I said, "Yeah." I would have said yes to anything. I said, "Yeah, I like mustard." And she said, "Well, I hate mustard, and I hate you." And all the kids laughed. And, that sounded like a big deal, but it was devastating to me. That with the bullies caused me to come up with this limiting belief that wasn't good enough, and I used to ask myself, how can I frickin' show them I'm good enough? Which, of course, presupposed I wasn't. And a lot of people have these limiting beliefs that they're not enough. They're not smart enough or strong enough or courageous enough or, analytical enough. That was another one of mine. And the thing to remember, or I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money. The thing to remember with belief systems is there's a reason the acronym is BS, because 99% of them are BS, okay? But we believe they're real from something that happened, in our past, and they have no basis in fact, okay? So if you have one of these and you're consciously aware of it, sometimes you're not consciously aware, sadly, but if you're consciously aware of it, drag it out into the daylight. Look at it with your adult rational mind. Recognize that it's BS, and it will start to diminish and go away. I mean, I used to be afraid to raise my hand in front of 10 kids in class, and now I speak in front of thousands of people a year in freaking flip-flops, okay? So, you can do it too, but you got to consciously pull it out and look at it. Don't just let it slide by when it pops up. The next thing I want to talk about is focus. Focus is freaking power, okay? And where focus goes, energy flows. And, so the most successful people on the planet have the highest degree of focus, okay? And I will tell you, incredible focus equals incredible success. But here's the thing. What you focus on gets larger, both positive or negative, okay? And so, I'll get people that call me and say, "How do I get out of student loan debt?" And I'm like, wrong question. How do you make so much freaking money that the debt's irrelevant is the question I want to hear, okay? They asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war. She said, "No, I'm pro-peace," okay? And you get what I'm saying here. It's you got to focus on what you want. And I'll tell you something, and focus is so important. So I've got the largest real estate podcast really in the world now for commercial real estate. There's nobody even close. And I don't know, I'm in probably pushing 30 million downloads. And I bring that up because I listen to two podcasts. I listen to Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan, okay? And I try to get both sides of the aisle. I'm definitely on one side, trust me. But on Tim Ferriss's show, which is the other side, I listen because he interviews some of the best and the best at the world. He interviews, the best athletes, Michael Phelps, NFL, NBA players, actors like Ed Norton, Hugh Jackman, Arnold, billionaires like Ray Dalio, CEOs of the biggest companies on the planet like Zuckerberg, and he deconstructs their success. And it's very intellectual, very interesting conversations. I really enjoy them. But I started to hear a pattern, Ton. They almost all meditate. What does meditation enhance? Focus, right? So focus is huge, guys. It's hugely important. And I would tell you also minimize your distractions. Typically, if you see me publicly, I will almost always be in one of these dark blue or black V-neck t-shirts. I just don't think about what I have to wear, okay? Because I avoid brain fatigue. And I don't know about you, but even me, I'll be sitting there watching Netflix and scrolling through freaking social media on my stupid phone, which kills your focus, okay? And so, just pay attention to that. It's super important. All right, the next piece I want to talk about is playing to your strengths. In the multifamily business, you'll discover it's a team sport. Yes, you can do single family by yourself. I bought 2,000 houses mostly by myself. I had employees, but it was mostly me. My brother for a while, but it was mostly me. But you're not going to buy 100-unit apartment complexes by yourself. You're going to do it. It's a team sport, okay? There's lots of different hats you can wear, but you got to play to your strengths. Your strengths are your greatest assets. Don't try to maximize your weaknesses. You're going to hit success much faster if you play to your strengths and then you align, you hire, or you partner for your weaknesses. Because when you love what you do, if you're playing to your strengths, you love what you do, okay? Because if you're strong at it, you love it, and you're good at it, and you never work another freaking day in your life, okay? And I'm going to tell you, in our business, the multifamily business, it's primarily empirical, okay? It's primarily numbers. So you got to have somebody that's like an analytical introvert, and then you have to have a mouthpiece like Rod, who's an extrovert, okay? And you put them together, and success is freaking inevitable. So, figure out what you'd enjoy doing in the multifamily business. Lots of different hats. Like I said, you can be the one that analyzes deals. You can be the one that finds the deals. You can be the one that raises money with investors. If you've got management or construction experience, you could do the asset management after you buy the property. So there's lots of different hats you can wear, but don't live somebody else's life. Do what you know you're good at, and success is inevitable, okay? And then the other thing is, when you love what you do, you're going to be passionate about it. And people are drawn to passion. Hopefully you can feel my passion. I freaking love this, and I think it probably comes out in my communication. And people want to be around those that are passionate because, that just draws them in. And when you operate from that passion, it's much easier to influence people. And you're going to have to influence people. You got to influence, brokers to sell to you, sellers to sell to you, investors to invest with you. And, success requires that ability to influence, and passion greatly enhances your ability to influence. And, and that passion is the fuel. Okay, so don't play small. Figure out what juices you and inspires you and do that. And passion breeds creativity and innovation, and candidly, it minimizes or even eliminates fear. So again, do what you love. The next thing is peer group. If you show me, you've heard this before, who you hang out with is who you become. You show me your 3 best friends, and I'll show you who you are in every aspect of your life. Your health, your happiness, and definitely your finances, okay? Because that's just how it works. But here's the problem. Most people default, Ton, you know this, they'll default to somebody they went to school with, or people they went to school with, or people they work with, rather than getting around people that will help them grow. See, I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy. I've got to... I'll brag for a minute here. I've got a coaching program. They're called My Warriors, and I've been teaching a little over 7 years. They now own, I believe, around 280,000 units, okay, under my tutelage. I'm very, very proud of that. But here's the reason I bring that up. They're almost all done between warriors, okay? That's a quality peer group. So get around people that want what you want. Don't default to people, because, see, if you default to people, you'll encounter their fears and their limiting beliefs, and out of their love for you, or their fear of losing you, or their fear of feeling rejected if you succeed, they can hold you back. And sometimes it's family. Okay, be careful. Love your family, but choose your freaking peers proactively. So go in your local community, find meetup groups, find real estate investor association groups, and get around people that are doing what you want to do. And that makes a huge difference in your success, because a rising tide lifts all ships, right? And so be very, very careful who you allow to influence you. You want people that will push you and hold you accountable. Again, people that think that what you think is hard is easy. If you're going to learn tennis, do you want to play somebody better than you or worse than you, right? I mean, we know the answer. All right. Now, remember I talked about fear of failure and problems. I'm going to tell you something. If you're not having problems or you're not failing regularly, let's be real, you're not trying, okay? I mean, let's be honest with each other here, okay? And like I said, we fail our way to success. Problems are a freaking gift because they give you feedback. When people come to one of my boot camps, it's usually a weekend, and on Monday, you're going to get a survey from me asking me how we did. And of course, 99.9% of it's glowing. I don't think I've ever really had much of a complaint other than the breaks were too short, or if it's a live one, the food sucked and the room was too cold, something like that. It's never about the content. But I look for that critical feedback, because how do you improve if you don't get that feedback, right? You got to know what the heck it is, you're doing wrong. And And, you know, and candidly, the only people who don't have problems are 6 feet underground, and we know that, right? You know, I got, speaking of problems, I got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx, the women's undergarments. Guys, it's
Sarah Blakely.
Sarah Blake. Yeah, Sarah Blakely, and I got to meet Jessie too, her husband. But I met her at her mastermind, and you know, by the way, guys, you know what Spanx are? It's the stuff that holds the stuff together under the shirts for women. But anyway, TMI. But anyway, so. Sarah told me that her dad used to ask her and her brother on about a weekly basis, what have you failed at this week? And I thought, what an awesome freaking question to ask your kids so they don't fear failure, right? Because again, if you're not trying and you're not failing, you're not growing, you're certainly not learning, okay? So, you know, again, we fail our way to success, and so don't fear failure. Fear, like I say, fear freaking regret. Just a couple more pieces, and then we can drill down on multifamily if you want. So the next one is gratitude, and this is probably the most important thing I'm going to talk about today, or the second to the most important. Gratitude is the most important foundational emotion, and don't tune out now that I got all foofy on you here, okay? Don't tune out, because this is probably the most important thing I'm going to talk about. Gratitude, it's the most important foundational emotion we have available to us. It makes us stronger when we face adversity. It strengthens our immune system. It makes our heart stronger. Actually lowers our blood pressure. You know, and you cannot be fearful and grateful at the same time. You can't be stressed, the Cheever's word for fear, and grateful at the same time. You can't be angry and grateful at the same time. Gratitude brings us closer to our spirituality, but here's what's most important. It's how you attract every single thing you want into your life, okay? So most mornings, I will sit on my recliner and I'll just be grateful for the people that I love in my life, my students, my foundation, the things that I'm doing, my beautiful home. And then I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. Okay, I've got vision boards there. I have separate vision boards for each thing that I want. They're sitting next to my recliner, or I'd show them to you here. But they're in my other office. And then I'll sit and do gratitude for those things as if I already have them, and I will feel as if I already have them. And I've gotten emotional being grateful for things I don't even have yet. And I'm sure I lost some of you introverted analyticals on that one, but ignore this at your peril. This is how I had $50 million to lose and how I got it back, okay? So trust me, this stuff works. You've got to use gratitude. So I have like I use a paper planner. I'm a dinosaur. I've got a big paper planner. In the back of this thing, I've got pictures that have been in there for like 25 years, and I got damn near everything in there, okay? You know, the stupid shit like the cars and the Lambo and the Rolls and the Bentley and all the, you know, I got like $1.5 million worth of watches, stupid crap that doesn't interest me anymore. But I got it all because I had pictures, and I manifested that stuff through gratitude. All right, the last thing I'll talk about here before we, you know, get into some more of the mechanical stuff. This, again, guys, this is more important than any of the real estate stuff, you know, but I mean, the real estate stuff's important. In fact, before I say this, let me just say one thing. I've got a boot camp coming up. It's in July. I don't know the exact dates, but it's in July. It's virtual. It's 2 days. I don't sell anything there, and you can come for $47 freaking dollars, okay? If the price goes up, just DM me and let me know you saw me on Ton's show, and I'll get you a code to come for $47. But if you go to rodsbootcamp.com, we go through, you'll leave knowing how to find deals, how to evaluate deals, how to raise all the money you need for your deals, how to underwrite them, how to finance them, how to syndicate, how to joint venture, how to property manage, and you'll leave so juiced you'll be coming out of your skin because I spend time on mindset. And this, again, that's the reason my students own I think somewhere between 270 and 280,000 units. We're still counting. And because they actually take action with what they learn. And so again, go to rodsbootcamp.com, and if it's more than 47, let me know. It's in July. And again, I don't sell anything there. So tell me your freaking excuse, okay? 2 days of training for $47, nothing being sold. Yeah, no freaking excuses. And like I said, I don't think I've ever had a complaint other than the breaks are too short, because I do 15-minute breaks every couple hours. And trust me, they're harder on me because I got to eat and pee and everything else in those 15 minutes. Again, TMI. But anyway, so anyway, I got that's coming up. And if you're serious about this freaking business, I think we are facing the greatest opportunity I'm going to see in my lifetime in multifamily. There's a ton of operators in trouble. I was talking to Ton about some deals I'm in that my ex-partner got us in some trouble. And so there's incredible opportunity coming. A lot of operators are struggling because of these high interest rates, where they came in at 3%, now they're at 9%. That's what we call a problem, okay? And so a lot of deals are going south. I'm seeing a lot of deals deals being sold for the debt. Okay, and these are deals that have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in them, and they're being sold for the debt. And even then, they don't pencil out. So we're gonna see some fantastic opportunities. So you got to get up to speed as quick as you can if you're interested in this, because I think we're facing some real opportunity. So anyway, so the last thing I want to talk about, and then we can digress into some other things, is, when I lived in Denver, I want to tell a little story. When I lived in Denver, I knew I wanted to live on the beach. There's no beach in Denver. It's in the middle of the country. And so I would visualize the palm trees and the sand and the surf. And, 20 years after I was 18 when I started visualizing this. 20 years later, I built this incredible mansion on the beach. I owned the beach on one side, had my boats on the backside. It was called a Gulf to Bay. It was a slice through an island, 10,000 square foot, magnificent home, a big spiral staircase up through the middle. I had a waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through that to get to the pool. The pool was in magazines, elevator, wine cellar. On the second floor, I had aquariums built around the curved custom aquariums built around the staircase. Cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the house. Well, I worked for that thing for 20 years, okay? 2 months after I moved in, okay? 20 years, 2 months. 2 months after we moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night by myself. The pool's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. It was just gorgeous. I had these special trees bought that went out over the pool. And I got depressed. I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. If that didn't prove the freaking world I was good enough, then God bless me. Who knows? I may as well just give it up. But I looked up at this testament to my ego, and I got depressed. And I don't mean a little bit. I got really depressed. I'm like, what the hell? I just achieved success like times 10,000. I had the Maserati and the Mercedes and all the stupid toys. Well, what I discovered is there were three things happening. One is when you achieve a big goal, you always have other goals lined up behind it, because you need a vision for the future. Like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. You got to have a vision for your future. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that was number one. Number two is it's never about the goals. Happiness comes from progress and growth. Okay. And so I didn't know what I was going to do next. So I couldn't grow. But the big thing, Ton, was I was totally focused on me. Show the world I'm good enough, blah, 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 rod this, rod that. And that's the year I went and saw Tony Robbins the first time. And I discovered he fed families for the holidays. And my brother went as well. And we're like, you know what? You're coming to Thanksgiving to Denver. Let's feed 5 families. So we shopped for these 5 families. He called his church, found out 5 families that really needed help. Third family changed my life. And don't leave me here, guys, because this is probably even more important than the gratitude. Okay, so trust me, there's a real message in this. And so third family changed my life. We go up and this woman comes out. She's in this crappy 1-bedroom with 5 kids, Hispanic woman. She sees the food on the porch that we had toys we'd bought for her kids, and she starts crying. Her kids come out. 2 of the older ones start crying. I start crying, and I was hooked. And I'm blessed to say in the last 26 years, I've now fed well over 150,000 children in my immediate area here for the holidays, with baskets of food and whatnot. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies for local kids that don't even have basic supplies for school. Don't get me started on that. The greatest country on earth, and can't even provide school supplies. I've done thousands and thousands of teddy bears to local police departments for their officers to keep in their vehicles. We just did 500 just a few weeks ago, Sarasota Police Department. So if they encounter a child that's been in a traumatic situation, they can comfort the child and bridge the gap between the officer and the child. And I don't say this to brag. I say this because Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement's a science. If you want to learn multifamily, get your butt to my freaking boot camp, okay? No excuses. $47, nothing being sold. Just get your butt there. But fulfillment is an art, okay? And by the way, if you come to the boot camp, I'll give you the blueprint and the map. You just got to go do it, okay? So it's there. It's a science. It's a science. But fulfillment's an art. You got to figure out what juices you. For me, it's kids, also the elderly, candidly, but whatever it is for you, it's kids, the elderly, animals, the environment. give back right freaking now. And you might be saying, okay, well, you had money, that's why you gave back. Listen, you want the money? Give back. That's how God works. Whatever you get, you get back tenfold. Okay, so give, even if you just give your time, because success will come faster. Now, you don't do it for that reason, but you'll also be fulfilled. You know, I host, like I say, the largest commercial real estate podcast around, and I've had people in my couch here in my studio that have thousands and thousands of units, and I can tell if they're like I was before I had that epiphany. And I feel sad for them because, yeah, they may be financially successful, but they're not truly successful because they're not fulfilled. All right, drop the mic.
That was a wealth of information, a lot of knowledge bombs out there, and personally, I got to re-listen to this thing. I might put this thing on repeat for like an hour. But
thanks, buddy.
Yeah, wonderful story, colorful background. I loved every minute of the mindset piece. So
thank you.
You mentioned a couple times, Rod, you lost 50 mil in the 2008 crash. What was the most important lesson that you took from that experience?
Great question. Actually, great question. So I had 800 houses along the Gulf Coast of Florida, okay, and 2 hours north of me, 2 hours south of me, and everywhere in between. That's a clue. Way too spread out, okay? Florida has no state income tax, so there's higher property taxes. I had properties in wind and flood zones, higher insurance. All those things impact cash flow. And so I never really well, let me tell you one other thing. They were primarily C-class properties. You know, there's A, B, C, and D. A's the brand new stuff, D's the hood. Stay out of the freaking hood. Ask me how I know. We give away t-shirts at my live events that say hashtag ask me how I know. Because I say, don't do that, ask me how I know. And one of my students got one for me. It was funny. And so now we print them and have them give them away. But anyway, so these were C-class properties, so they're older. They have a tougher tenant demographic. They're harder on the property, so there's a lot more maintenance, okay? Now, I had some apartment complexes. If I had a maintenance issue at one of my apartment complexes, we could stockpile parts. You got plumbing parts, appliance parts, you know, HVAC parts, locks, things like that, things that you can stockpile. Maintenance guy's in and out in an hour. Well, if I got to send him an hour one way or an hour and a half one way to go to a house, because every house is different, you can't stockpile for every house, and then they see what's wrong. Then they got to find a Home Depot or Lowe's where we have an account. And I don't know about you, Ton, when Rod's happy ass goes to try to fix something, he goes to Home Depot more than once because he missed something. And it's the same thing with maintenance guys. So what took all an hour at one of my apartment complexes took all day at one of my 800 houses. So we never really cash flowed. And I mean, but I thought, okay, this gravy train's going to go on forever. If prices go up, just like, you know, the last few years with rents have gone up. But what killed me was I didn't pay attention to tenant demographics either. Okay, if they had a good job or they had good credit or they had to have both and they paid a deposit, I let them rent. Well, what I discovered was I had tons of contractors in my houses, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, and that fell off a cliff in 2008-9. They didn't have work. And so now when I buy an asset, like particularly during COVID, I literally look where every single resident works, like even in our 296 unit asset. I will look where they work and I will gauge their job to recession resistance, okay? And so that's a big clue I got out of it. And you know, and I really didn't pay attention to cash flow like I do now. And you know, I've got a best-selling book. I give it away for free. By the way, if you go to Rod's links, you can get the physical copy by paying $6 or $7 for the shipping, and I've never had a critical word about that book. I'm very proud of that. I've given away tens of thousands of copies of it. But the reason I bring that up, see if I got it behind. Yeah, I have it behind me here. Hang on one second.
I believe it's the lifetime of positive cash flow or something like that.
So it's how to create lifetime cash flow through multifamily properties. But the reason I bring this up is the subtitle is The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, i.e. the new rule is focus on freaking cash flow. I don't care what you can, like right now, I have people calling me and saying, hey, I can buy this property for $5 million, sold for $8 million in 2022. And I'm like, I don't care. Show me the numbers. How does it cash flow? Well, at today's interest rate, it doesn't, you know, so don't tell me what you can buy it for that it sold for before. That's irrelevant. It's all about freaking cash flow. But anyway, if you want this book, you'll really enjoy it. I promise you that. It's at rodslinks.com. It's in my free book section. There's a ton of free books there, by the way, and some of them are best in class books and they're free. Okay, but Yeah, you really enjoy that. But again, it's all about cash flow, and that's one of probably the biggest lesson I learned, Ton.
Gotcha. So you mentioned a lot about limiting beliefs, and I know a ton of investors, aspiring investors, they all struggle with overcoming limiting beliefs. What has been the biggest obstacle or the biggest mental roadblock that you've seen, and how do we start to overcome that limiting belief?
Well, it's fear. Well, it's more fear, honestly, than limiting belief. It's fear of failure. It's fear of, what happens if I fail? Well, what I would tell you is what happens if you're in the same place right now or 2 years from now that you are right now? That's what you should fear, okay? You should fear that regret, like Bronnie Ware discovered in people that were dying. Their biggest regret was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life. I can't imagine anything worse than that, okay? So that's what you should fear. And so it's primarily fear. As far as limiting beliefs, yeah, they will hold people back, but you know what holds people back just as much is they're comfortable. And Ton, we know the comfort zone's a nice warm place, and nothing freaking grows there, okay? And so, you've got to discover, you got to look in the mirror, and you got to figure out what could be holding you back. Is it fear, or is it a limiting belief, or are you just comfortable? But you may be comfortable, but you're not where you want to be. You're not, you don't have the time to spend with the people that matter the most that you'd like to have. And I would just tell you, do the goal setting, because that will really help create that hunger. Go to Rod's links, do the goal setting, or better yet, get your butt to my boot camp, because we'll do it together live. But do that, and that's how you push through that stuff, because that's what it's going to take. If you don't look in the mirror and fully analyze where you are and what you want, you'll never change. And what's the definition of insanity? Trying to do the same thing and not changing, right?
100% agree with you. Yeah. I tell a lot of people, to figure out your why, you have to consistently asking yourself that same question over and over until you get to your true why of why you want to do something.
You dig deep on the why. So why do I want that car? Why? Because it'll make me feel good. No, why will it make me feel good? Because girls or guys will be looking at me or whatever. And then why do I want girls or guys to look at me? Because I want love or whatever. You go deep. I love that. That's actually a fantastic strategy to go through, going deeper on your why. I love that you brought that up.
And at the end of the day, from what I realize is the last why that you ask them, if you ask them enough times, and generally it's about 5 times.
They want love.
It's happiness. It's happiness.
They want happiness and love. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Now, Rod, you mentioned you were hanging out with Tony Robbins for a little bit, and I'm assuming.
No, I was actually on his team for 8 years.
Okay.
I followed him around the planet for 20 years. I did every one of his events every year for 11 years, and finally they're like, "Hey, why don't you just join the team, Knucklehead, and you can just come for free and hang out." And I learned a ton from him. By the way, if you have an opportunity to see Tony, just freaking do it before he stops talking. He's extraordinary, and he will change every aspect of your life if you allow it.
Aside from Tony and kind of that network that you were surrounded by for so long, were there any other big mentors that you had along the way? And if so, what were the key lessons that you've learned from them?
Well, this will be polarizing, but I Trump for sure. I've read all of his books, and he's a magnificent negotiator. I mean, as we're recording this, he just finally got China to step up to the table and quit screwing us. And now we're at 10% reciprocal tariffs, which is where we should be. And they're allowing U.S. businesses to go in and do business in China for the first freaking time without all the restrictions that they put on us. I mean, he's and I put that out on my social media, and I got so much freaking hate. The orange man is going to cause us to pay more taxes. I'm like, Jesus, he's just negotiating. That's all it is. So yeah, no, he's definitely a mentor that I admire greatly. Of course, all of Kiyosaki's books were fantastic. They're all good. Every one of his books is fantastic. So, my mentors have been in books. I've got a library downstairs that'll blow your mind. I have thousands of books down there, and I didn't go to college, but I can tell you I'm probably better read than just about any college graduate. So that's how I did it. And, at my boot camp, I show this picture because I didn't go to college. Let me show you my college. And I show this picture where my arms are extended, and I've got hundreds of lanyards around my arms and on my chest from masterminds and workshops and boot camps and coaching and all these things that I did outside. Specialized knowledge, it's called. That's what Napoleon Hill calls it. Don't be a generalist, be a specialist. And that's why you've got to, and I'm going to tell you, those of you listening, we are heading into some incredible opportunity to buy real estate for sure. Okay, there's carnage coming in the commercial real estate space, and there's going to be incredible opportunity to buy businesses. There's 80 million baby boomers getting old, and you could buy businesses. So, but you got to decide how you're going to capitalize on what's coming and get up to speed now. Quit sitting on your butt and go study something, be it with me or whatever. And pick the vehicle, okay? And that's what I will call it. Pick your vehicle so you can capitalize on what's coming, because it's coming. And like in 2008, I got crushed by that wave. I'm surfing this one, baby. Okay, so yeah.
Love that. So obviously with the crash, you kind of lost almost everything, right? If not everything. And this might be, what I'm curious, because you've already started over once. But today, if you were to start over today, no capital, but the only thing you had left would be your knowledge. What would be your first steps, and how would you regain the same position that you're in today?
The first thing I just said, I'd pick my vehicle, whatever it is. Then I would go study it, whatever. If I didn't have any money, I'd go to YouTube University. I mean, I've got videos there you can watch. They're free. I'd start listening to the podcast, And by the way, if you're interested in my podcast, it's also at Rod's links, but you could go to rodspodcast.com and all the ways you can watch it or listen to it there as well. But I would educate myself as quickly as possible. Simultaneously, I'd be building relationships with people that I felt might pull me forward. I'd get around people that were doing what it is that I planned to do. And brainstorming with them, getting to know them, befriending them, adding value to them if I could. Those are the three things I would do immediately.
Love that. So to get to where you are today, obviously you need good people around you. You need to be able to build a machine in order to scale up. And
every business is nothing but people and systems.
Yep.
You get the systems down, you get the right people, hire the best you can. Success is inevitable.
How do you approach finding the best people for your team? What characters or attributes or values do they have?
Sure. Good question. Yeah, so I don't look for skill set. I look for work ethic and passion. I look for how will they communicate, and that's very difficult. I've hired hundreds of people, again, 29 businesses. I used to have a big mortgage company with 80 loan officers, and I had a big litigation support company with 60 employees, and you make a lot of hiring mistakes. But don't focus so much on references, because people will BS their references. Just, I've got a list of interview questions that I'm happy to share with you that I've compiled over the years. But you really want to drill down on who they are, what their goals are, what motivates them, how they deal with stress, how they deal, and really what they want in their life. And, and then look at what they've done in the past, their successes, their failures, ask them about that. And again, the two primary things I look for are passion and work ethic, and I can train them on everything else.
Love that. Okay. So are there any operational challenges that you're currently facing with where you are?
Well, there's always, as you're growing, you have better quality problems, okay? You'd see, that's the thing in life, you're going to have problems, but you want better quality problems, right? Yeah. As you grow. And so like a problem right now is we've outgrown our back-end operating system where we house all our trainings and things like that, and we're looking at a new system that we're converting over to, and we just talked about it on my meeting this morning. We use something in my companies called EOS. It's Entrepreneur's Operating System, from Gino Wickman's book, Traction. And if you're not doing that, I highly recommend it, Ton. It's fantastic. And any of you that have a business, go read Traction. It's a game changer for maximizing your business. You set 90-day goals. They're called rocks, but they're 90-day goals. You make one person accountable for each one. If you have more than one, nobody's accountable. And you, instead of an organizational chart, you have an accountability chart. So and it's just a fantastic way to maximize a business. And but again, every business is nothing but people and systems. You get the right people, you set up the right systems, and I'm a proponent for Kaizen, which is Tony Robbins calls it Kanai, but basically it's the Japanese came up with it. A guy named Robert Deming did it in their manufacturing, in Japan, but it's constant, never-ending improvement. I mean, we just massively improved my warrior program, my coaching program. I mean, massively. I mean, to the point where I still have to redo our agreements because, we've made all these incredible changes, and I literally had them on my computer downstairs. I got to work on them this afternoon and lay out all the different things we're doing now, the additional things we're doing now for our students. But it's growing pains. Again, it's quality problem. It's a better quality problem. That's what you want to seek in life, better quality problems.
You mentioned that you are well-read. Now, outside of the books that you've written and the ones that you're giving out to everybody,
Sure.
What is your favorite book or books, and what's the biggest lesson that you've had from that book?
Well, let me tell you, the books, my love language is gifts. So my warriors, my coaching students get books from me, and I'll tell you the ones I gift, okay? The 5 love languages. I was blessed to have him on my podcast, the author, because he's in his 80s and he doesn't do interviews that often. I mean, that's a fantastic book. Gary Keller's One Thing. I had Jay Papasan on the show, his co-author. It's a fantastic book. The Slight Edge, about those decisions that you make every day. They don't mean much that day, but they either traject your life up or down based on what they are. Those little decisions you make every day. Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. I've had him on the show a couple times. He's magnificent about the things you do every morning to get yourself going. You exercise, you meditate, you journal. Highly recommend all of those books. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All of that. Yeah, so, there you go.
What I like to ask all successful people what their kind of habits and their kind of routine is. And obviously with Miracle Morning, I've lived like that for a while. What do you follow the Miracle Morning, or what are some of the habits or routines that you currently have that's very beneficial for you?
I don't, just because I'm not an early morning riser, and I'm very organized. I get more done in a day. Most people get done in a week, but I actually exercise in the afternoon. That's how I break between my work day and relaxing into the evening. So I typically exercise in the afternoon. And I've slacked off on the journaling. I've got journals actually behind me here that I did. If you do my goal setting workshop, if you come to my boot camp as well, if you do either one of those, and Rod's links, the goal setting workshop or my boot camp, I do a weekly planning process training. It takes about 15 minutes, and one of the pieces of that is journaling, okay? And it's how I manage, that planning process is how I manage 2 large companies at the same time by focusing on what's most important. So again, if you do the boot camp or you do my goal setting workshop, at the end of the goal setting workshop, the last 15 minutes is my weekly planning process. It's very powerful, okay? And the reason I did it was my greatest regret in life to this day was I'd come home to that mansion. By the way, this is kind of funny, I lost that mansion and all the craziness, okay? But because God's got a sense of humor, I've got a compound now with 6 buildings. I'm in one of the buildings right now. And because God's got a sense of humor, it's literally right across the back. I can see it right out my backyard here. But anyway, and I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with
Your
that?
habits, routines.
Oh, yeah. So I still lost it. Where was I going with that? Yeah, it's never pretty when you lose your mind.
You don't journal anymore?
Oh, okay. Well, I've slacked off. Oh, that's right. I'd come home to that mansion across the beach, okay, across the bay here, okay, and I'd play with my kids every night. But because I was so focused on proving the world I was good enough, I wasn't there mentally. And it's my greatest regret in life to this day. My kids will tell you I was a magnificent dad, but I didn't live up to my own expectations, which is why that planning process is so freaking powerful. Because if you do that, and let me share that with you, and you actually implement it, you won't have that regret, okay? Because I help you through that piece, and this is what I teach my warriors. Yeah, success is freaking important, but not if you're giving up that time with the people that matter. You're giving up your presence with the people that matter, and so we spend a lot of time on that. We spend time on that. We spend time on giving back, it's super important. Both those things.
So outside of your boot camp, Rod, obviously for everybody listening, you're getting just a little bit of a glimpse of who Rod is, and I'm sure you're going to learn a ton from the boot camp. I would be a proponent of it. Definitely check it out for $47. There's literally no excuses, right?
Right.
And Rod, you also mentioned your warriors. That sounds like a mastermind program. Is that right?
Well, it's my coaching program. I have about 2,000 coaching students around the country, and they get one-on-one coaching and a whole bunch of extraordinary program, and we're a fraction of what anybody else charges. And I think our door count is probably better than all my competitors combined. Okay, like I say, 280,000 units, and something. Again, I'm very, very proud of that. I've got a wall in my office downstairs with hundreds of thank you cards on the wall from my warriors and students whose lives have been impacted by my work. But yeah, if you're interested in that coaching program, text the word CRUSH to 72345. And if you're driving listening to this, text the word boot camp to 72345 and we'll send you the link to that. So if you're driving listening, text CRUSH to 72345 to apply to my warrior program. Text boot camp to 72345 to get information on the boot. I said that wrong. CRUSH for the warrior program, boot camp for the for the boot camp. Again, it's never pretty when you lose your mind. So,
well, outside of the boot camp and the mastermind, Rod, how else would people reach you?
Rod's links. Yeah, rodslinks.com has all my social media. I answer every question there, or I try to. Okay, it's got my Facebook, my Instagram. I don't think my TikTok's there. I don't really answer questions there that much, but Facebook and Instagram's there. And I host the largest Facebook group for multifamily really in the world. There's 55,000 people in there. A lot of valuable information comes into that. But the best thing's my podcast. My link to my podcast is there. I mean, I think you really enjoy it. Every week I do a clip called Own Your Power, and it's 5 minutes. You give me 5 minutes, I will juice you, okay, every week, okay, because I've got hundreds of them there, and I really enjoy doing those. And then, of course, I interview experts like you do.
Love that. Love that. Well, outside of that, Rod, what's next for you? What are you most looking forward to?
You know, my goals have changed. You know, I've had all the material stuff. My goal is experiences, and I just get so much, I mean, it's going to sound like hyperbole, but it's not. I just get so much satisfaction from seeing my student success, from the work my foundation does, and, you know, the stuff really doesn't matter anymore. But, yeah, that's what's next. And I'm single again. I'm single now, so I am looking to change that. But, yeah. There's everything.
So look out for Rod on those dating apps. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, good God help us. God help us. All right. Well, listen, brother, I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah,
It's been a lot. It's been a lot of fun because I've done all the talking. You know, like the Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Let them do all the talking. They'll think it's the best conversation they ever had. So
this was amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, Rod,
Thanks,
I appreciate your time, brother. Hopefully, I can get you on later on if anything changes. Hopefully, you get way more students and you're adding a ton of value already.
I appreciate it.
So
I appreciate it. Thanks, brother.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah.